I wanted to make this video on why people wonder why all these Orwellian laws are coming into effect and why all our politicians are selling us out for certain groups or certain groups of people. And the reason is because of lobbying. We need to get rid of lobbying out of our democracy. And the reason is because lobbying is used by powerful interest groups to sway law into their favor. Now, lobbying can be a positive force in democracy, but it also can be a mechanism for powerful groups to influence laws and regulations at the expense of the public interest. This may result in undue influence, unfair competition, and policy capture to the detriment of effective policy making. So basically, lobbying is basically any attempt by individuals or private interest groups to influence decisions of the government. In its original meaning, it is referred to the efforts to influence the votes of legislators, generally in the lobbying outside the legislative chamber. Lobbying in some form is inevitable, is what they like to say, and that's because lobbying brings in a whole lot of money to our politicians to get them elected to pass certain laws that these lobbies want them to pass in order to benefit their corporations or their big tech companies. Now, the way lobbying affects the government is because, in a negative way, is because lobbying enables outsiders to influence government. Lobbyists control the information that lawmakers receive. Lobbyists overload lawmakers with biased information to get these laws passed that best interest them. Now, it makes businesses too transparent, and that's a lie. It favors groups over the individual, which is definitely 100%. It favors groups over the individual. It enables outsiders to influence lawmakers. And I mean outsiders down to outsiders from other countries. For instance, we have Israel with AIPAC and CPAC out here. They control two of the biggest, largest lobbies out here that move laws into their favor. And not just only Israel, probably other countries as well. And a whole lot of corporations have a huge influence over our lawmakers just by lobbying and getting certain laws passed to their interests. Now, lobbying can also lead to undue influence, unfair competition, and regulatory capture to the detriment of the public interest and effective public policies. Now, there's no way to safeguard this because in a way it's like laundering money, and in a way it's like a way for tax cuts, and in a way it's a way to get certain laws and certain things passed to the benefit of these big corporations that have forever chemicals in every plastic thing that we use, that are trying to curb us and trying to tax us in every way possible. And they're the ones that are inputting these laws into place. Because yeah, they might lose a couple of dollars getting these politicians to become politicians, but in the long run they make out because they end up getting laws passed in their favor or in their companies or corporations' favor. Now, when they talk about climate change and all this, in a way, to me, the reason I look at it as this big boogeyman hoax thing that's going on is because our politicians are the ones that are passing these laws that are causing all this supposed detriment to the environment. So if we really want to make a big change, we need to start with our lawmakers, because they create the problems, and also start funding money to solve the problem that they done created themselves. So in a way, it seems like a two-sided thing that's being pushed by both sides to get people to basically be taxed into eternity, and at the same time not just being taxed, but at the same time passing laws that goes completely against the freedom of man and our Constitution altogether, because lobbyists are professionally hired by special interest groups to represent their interests to Congress. Now, a lot of times these lobbyists that become hired by these big corporations or these interest groups that want to pass these laws, a lot of times they hire ex congressmen or ex-politicians because they already know other politicians and they could rub hands and be able to do favors for each other. So a lot of times, a lot of these big corporations or these big companies, what they would do is they would hire ex-politicians to become their lobbyists for Congress or for our governments in order for them to be able to make certain laws pass in their favor. Now, lobbyists today funnel millions of dollars into the hands of Congress because they become dependent on money for lobbyists to fund their political careers. Congress ends up passing laws to keep the lobbyists and their clients happy instead of the laws that benefit the American hard-working people. Those of us who can't afford to hire a lobbyist or make big campaign contributions are out of luck. A lobbyist can't just walk up to a lawmaker with a briefcase full of cash and say, "Hey, Senator, I'll give you $100,000 if you do this and that for me." But lobbyists can still give the congressman $100,000 and much more without breaking any laws. Basically, if it seems like the government isn't working for people, part of the problem is because they're effectively being bribed very often by lobbyists who are representatives of these big companies and these big corporations that pass laws into their favors. So, if you really want to make a huge change, people need to start passing a petition or start calling your lawmakers to find a way to stop lobbying or to stop lobbyists from interfering with our great democracy. Because what these lobbyists do is they end up funding certain things that best promotes their idea and their ideology, their agendas, and their ways of life, or laws that benefit them financially. Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.